All right, welcome to my book club. I'm Dylan, here with the man who looks like he's taking an aging potion. Keith, what's up, buddy?
Sophisticated dusting of gray hair, sir. Sophisticated dusting.
You're just always trying to pass that age line. That's your thing.
Yeah, I would have easily passed it.
We're also joined by a very special guest who you may remember from one of our several Mitch Rapp episodes. Jimmy, welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Harry Potter is one of my favorite book series, so it's an honor.
The Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down some bestsellers, and this week we'll be entering the Triwizard Tournament and discussing Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, send us an owl on Twitter, Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us iTunes, Spotify, wherever your podcast download, 5-star reviews, all those things. Say hate if you want it. Doesn't matter. Be a Malfoy. No one cares. If nothing else, give us a follow on social channels, please. And thank you. Quick disclaimer for the Harry Potter series. There are spoilers. There's going to be spoilers for this book, Goblet of Fire. There's probably going to be spoilers for future books. If you haven't read any of them, just let the whole episode play so that the algorithm works, but then don't listen to it. Keith, let's get into some stock up, stock down. What do you have for stock up?
Stock up, the return of the Dark Lord.
Okay.
Always great to have the true villain rise back up to power. And of course, I'm talking about Moody, Barty Crouch Jr. He is my true Dark Lord. Can I just go through his resume real quick and tell me why this guy isn't the best and how he's much better than Voldemort? He's the first actual prisoner to escape Azkaban. He got away with it. He's not like Sirius getting caught on the run.
You're saying he's the first prisoner to escape because he did it before.
Yeah, did it before Sirius. And he got away with it.
Yeah.
He breaks away from the Imperious Curse, is able to not be put under that spell. Then he goes out, disables, and captures the best Auror ever in Moody. Then he puts him under that same curse, which holds him there, even though he's technically supposed to be the best Auror ever. Goes to Hogwarts day one, and he starts bouncing Malfoy like a ferret. I fucking love that. That was amazing. There was Allen Iverson out there just dribbling him on the floor. I loved it. He's teaching kids how to fight off these spells. He's teaching them all these dark spells. He prevents Harry from being murdered 3 different times with the 3 different tasks. So even though ultimately that wasn't an end goal, he is a good guy. I mean, everything about him is great. He kills his shitty dad at Hogwarts on the ground and gets away with it. The list goes on and on and on. Like, he's by far the best dark wizard we've been introduced to in this book. And then we get the juxtaposition of him versus Voldemort, who's like, I'm going to show everyone how good I am. I'm going to fight this 13-year-old, then loses to him. That's our Dark Lord. That's the person everyone's, jumping to follow. Let's get Barty Crouch Jr. out here. This is my guy.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's who I would follow. And I hate this as a stock up, Keith, because to tell you honestly, this was my House Cup winner. It was the Dark Lord, and the Dark Lord is Barty Crouch Jr. Because,
okay, all right.
So I'm upset you stole it from me, but it's 100%. The classroom where he does the 3 unforgivable curses, that lesson, we haven't seen a Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson that good since our Bogart days with Lupin.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
That lesson, phenomenal. So well done. I even appreciate how he taught the kids that, but also because he's a Death Eater and a terrible human being, he also made sure that Harry was there, who's both of his parents have died from Avada Kedavra curses, and he barely survived, so he ruined his life from that. Hey, Harry, here's what it looked like when your parents died, by the way. And then also Neville, like, hey, Neville, I know you go see your parents at St. Mungo's because they were tortured until they went insane. So here, let me show you what that looks like on a spider.
Yeah, but he comforted both of those people after the fact.
Yeah, well, it was, from a different place in his heart, his dark, dark heart, but I respect it. Like, I'm not a big LeBron James fan, but I respect his game.
I do also appreciate that that he shows the Imperious Curse, which is basically like controlling someone, right? And people are laughing because it's like funny, and he's like, "You fuckers, don't laugh at this. You know how evil this is." Meanwhile, 10 minutes earlier, he literally turns one of the students into a ferret and is bouncing him all around the ground. It's like, wait, what's the difference between these two things? So I respect him a lot.
And just to add in, he goes the whole year basically doing a perfect Moody impression.
Oh, great actor. Yes.
And let's
Agreed.
think about it. It's so good that in the later books, basically, the new Moody is the old Moody. It's like basically the scene from Beer Fest where Landfill dies. They get his twin in. They're like, we're just going to call you Landfill. The new Moody is the old Moody. He crushed that.
Great reference, and I couldn't agree with you more. It was one of my lingering questions was, how did he do Moody so well? Because you're 100% right. In the later books, it's the exact same character, and it obviously would have had to have been because it was fooling Albus Dumbledore right under his long, crooked nose. So I'm not sure how he was able to do the Moody so well, considering that he was in prison for all those years and presumably didn't run in the same circles as Moody during the heydays of the Dark Lord. So not 100% sure how he got into the character acting, but yeah, he's probably just another Daniel Day-Lewis, and he just, manned up and figured it out.
I do love that Dumbledore never suspects Moody, and then Moody takes him away for like 2 seconds after he's like, just stay here, Harry, at the end of the Triwizard Tournament. He's like, oh, I knew something was up. Like, this was completely off. It's like,
Yeah.
Bro, you had a whole year to be like, something's wrong with this dude.
Perfect. So well said, because, yeah, that's 100% right. He's, like, almost bragging to Harry. He's like, I knew the real Moody wouldn't take you away from me. He's like, and you didn't know any other real Moody moments before this? When you were going off to your 5:30 bowel movement that you had to tell everybody about while they're eating dinner? You didn't think about that? So... yeah, very very well said.
What a callback too.
Room of Requirements, by the way, that's the room that Dumbledore found, which will play into the later books. Spoilers ahead. Jimmy, what do you got for stock up?
In honor of football season, I'm going to have to go stock up parlays. Just absolutely crushed it here with the Weasleys. I'm surprised that J.K. Rowling is up to date on her, sports betting. But they come to the Cup, the Quidditch Cup.
The Quidditch World Cup, yeah.
With their entire life savings, we're talking 37 plus galleons, and they put it all on a parlay. Now, I know you're a big time sports bettor, but normal sports people, they think parlays are for fools. Screw that. Parlays are the best part of sports. And they just go all
absolutely
in. And even Ludo Bagman, he's like, oh, I'm going to give you some good odds on this. This is a sucker's bet. I mean, what are they even doing? They're betting on Irish to win, but they're also betting on Crumb to catch the snitch. That makes no sense. Why would Crumb ever catch the snitch if he's going to lose the game? But they say, screw it. We love the odds here. And they go all in, and they win. And, good for them, because that's what sports is all about. It's all about potentially losing your shirt.
Yeah, it's a great call, and it was my first stock up as well. Granted, I just went with gambling, but parlay makes much more sense. And for those that aren't in the know, parlay is just when you combine multiple bets together to increase the odds. And you're right that in the gambling circles, the wise guys aren't fans of the parlay, but the two-team parlay is where they'll often bend the rules and allow themselves to do it, because you actually get decent odds there. The three-team, it starts to get a little crazy. But yeah, this particular bet, and I also enjoyed the fact that it was their entire life savings of 37 galleons, plus they had a funny wand, which he threw in for 5 galleons. Seems like a lot. But yeah, they threw their whole life savings. It's like, I read The Gambler, and I talked about it on the pod before, the Billy Walters book, who's one of the most famous gamblers in the world. And that's what he would do. He'd spend his whole summer as a kid mowing lawns and then get it up to like $300. And then he just bet it all on one horse or something like that. Just absolutely savage. The bet itself, I agree, a little questionable. But I thought Ludo, as just like a first intro of a character, like Ludo Bagman, he was making an early push for our House Cup award with how hard he's pushing those around him to gamble. Like, he's trying to get Barty Crouch to gamble. Like, he's trying to get everyone that is in his voice distance. And he's got a big distance because he does that sonoros on his throat, so he can scream to the mountaintops. But he's trying to get everyone involved. Keith, were you a big fan of the gambling aspect?
Oh, I loved it. I was trying to handicap what the odds would be there.
So, okay, I was thinking about this as well, because Ireland wins is obviously the favorite. But if there was a prop bet for Crumb getting the snitch, he's also the favorite, because Ireland has a much better team, but Crumb's the best seeker in the world. With those two things happening, though, I feel like the odds would increase significantly. I know, Jim, you were alluding to the idea that why the hell would Crumb get the snitch? It was one of my lingering questions. So how did you feel about Crumb getting the snitch, which Harry says is like he wanted to end the game on his terms because he knew that Bulgaria wasn't gonna like score anymore or something, but they were only down 160 points. They get one more goal, he catches the snitch, it's a draw, which is much better than losing.
That was my thought exactly as well. You're down by, let's say, 300 points, 400 points. You're not coming back. Okay, Crumb's catching the snitch. To just be down, and I think the final score was 170 to 160, you just hold out a little bit longer and you might be able to win the whole thing. Which almost makes me think, is this like a Black Sox like scandal level with Crumb that somehow the Weasley twins got aware of?
Yeah, it just didn't make a lot of sense because it's 2 goals. Like, I know your team is worse, but you can score 2 goals. Get down by 140, Crumb gets the snitch, wonky feints him out there. So, yeah, I thought that was great, and I feel like we should move on from the gambling stuff because we could just talk about this the whole time. But I do have to say that this must be the best year for gamblers in the Wizarding world. You get the Quidditch World Cup and the Triwizard Tournament, which of course you can bet on. You have to be able to. It's the UK. They got betting booths on every corner. So I can't imagine a better year for sports gambling. Okay, one more gambling question. Who was the favorite to win the Triwizard Tournament? Like, who is the favorite to 4th? What do you guys think?
It's obviously Victor Crumb's a favorite. We got the best athlete in the world, then the guy that's in the library studying in the books the whole time. Like, that's the ultimate combination. That's It's like Tom Brady, but like if he were Michael Vick's athleticism. That's what it sounds like, right?
Yeah, so Crumb's like a plus 120 or something.
I see what you're saying, but is Crumb's intelligence a factor here? Because, like, if we're talking like this is a Chris Webber situation where he's calling a timeout, he doesn't have any timeouts in the Quidditch World Cup, like, that's got to play a factor in the Triwizard Tournament as well. I think it's, Jamarcus Russell
he's book smart.
Level, like, intelligence. He failed the Wonderlic score. I don't know if I'm putting my money on him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, well, we have to think Crumb started off with trying to do the conjunctivitis charm on the dragon, which seems like a long shot, but it worked. He was able to do it. Then he does the transfiguration to turn himself into a shark that he didn't do super well. At that point, then he just gets the Imperius curse on him. So that one's a tough call. But him hanging out in the library was really just to see Hermione and Keith.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
I thought he was just a bookworm. I was like, I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I feel like him and Cedric would be up there. Crumb's probably the favorite. Cedric's right behind him. It has to be Fleur as 3rd because Harry's 2 years younger. Like, you can't possibly... But it's obviously a very good bet for those in the know because, Harry's got that Gryffindor in him. So my first stock down is slave labor. Or excuse me, stock up. Slave labor.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, obviously not a fan. But hey, this stock is selling for nothing and we're going to buy here because we learn in this book that it's house elves that are doing all the work around Hogwarts. Everything felt super magical when it came to eating at Hogwarts, especially now that we've seen the movies and seen a couple of the movies, and you just see these massive trays of all the things you would possibly want to eat just magically show up on the table. We think that they're just getting, I don't know, Uber Eats in or something like that, but it's house elves who are legitimately slaving down in the kitchens where it's got to be super hot. I can't imagine the ventilation's any good. And they're putting all this food out for all these students and teachers. And then on top of that, they have to do all the cleaning. They're talking about how they have to light the fires in the entire castle. They clean everyone's dormitories and whatnot. And they do it while no one's there or no one sees them. I don't know how this organization, because Hogwarts is an organization, how would this organization be able to function without this slave labor? Like, if they had to pay these people, these house elves, they'd be screwed. But they don't, so here we go. Hogwarts is what it is. All the magic is on the backs of these house elves. I kind of have to support Hermione and spew. I got to be on that team because I can't stand for it. What say you?
So you're asking us if we're against slavery
yes,
or for
exactly.
it?
You have to make a decision.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let Jimmy take that one first.
Well, it does kind of tie into my one of my stock downs, which was the woke liberal media, which was AKA Hermione here. You're talking about slave labor, and that's a strong word, but these guys love what they do, and it really just goes to that, slavery's in the mind, not really like in reality.
Oh, okay.
And so every single person is telling Hermione, is like, look, these guys love what they do. Like, you're going to make them unhappy. Hagrid, even, who loves all sorts of creatures, is like, get off this, Hermione. Like, they love it. They live to work. They live to serve. They're basically the entire scene from Beauty and the Beast. Be our guest. We got you. Hermione's like trying to unionize, and it's like, chill, Hermione, because Hermione's an unhappy person and she wants to make other people unhappy, and it's really sad to see.
At least pay him. That's all I'm saying. You just give him a galleon here and there. I mean, Dumbledore came at it from the right approach. He offered Dobby payment, and Dobby said that'd be wonderful. Dumbledore said, okay, I'll give you, galleon a month. And he was like, whoa, no way. Give me a penny. And he was like, all right, cool. So there's an agreement there. It's a contract. I stand for that as opposed to just passing a house elf down. And also the physical abuse has to go, which obviously doesn't happen at Hogwarts. No way that would happen under Dumbledore's nose. Like, no way Moody would be able to be an imposter. Or Voldemort would have already come to the castle 2 other times and defeated Harry.
Don't get me wrong. If you ask for your freedom, you should be allowed your freedom. I'm not going that far. But, the rest of the unionization, let's get out of here, Hermione. My other stock up was ChatGPT. A lot of times in the wizarding world, magic makes you work smarter, not harder sort of thing. And in line with that, we have Rita Skeeter, who is not writing anything. She has this magical pen, which just basically creates all her articles for her. She's living the life. And, really, that's kind of the dream. So she's just interviewing, the pen's just doing its thing. I'm not even sure why she even needs to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend who I will obviously not name here who works for a very successful real estate company, and he said he uses ChatGPT for legitimately everything he does. He just, all meetings he does through Microsoft Teams, he just has them transcribed, and then when he sends summaries of the meeting, he just asks ChatGPT to do it, and then sends that out to people. And if he needs to read through some document, he just puts it into ChatGPT and he's like, hey, tell me the deal points in this, and then ChatGPT kicks it back out, and that's how he does all of his work. And I was like, hey, you work smarter, not harder, for sure. I'm proud of you, and soon enough none of us will have jobs.
And then she put the setting in there too of embellish everything and make stuff up. So I think she had that AI fine-tuned pretty well. So yeah, good call.
It's too bad Rowling was obviously on top of this years ago. It's too bad she didn't take her $1 billion and just start ChatGPT, and then she would have been Bezos.
Well, she would create the very thing that would destroy her.
We should ask ChatGPT to come up with the 8th Harry Potter book. Keith, did you have any other stock ups?
The last one, conspiracy theories, stock up.
Yeah.
I've obviously stocked up this a few times, but the problem with the people at Hogwarts, the ministry, the people reading the newspapers is there just isn't enough distrust or belief in conspiracy theories in the community at all. And a lot of it's not even really needs to be conspiracy theories, just basic logic.
Yeah.
We're in the beginning of the book and everyone's like, Harry must have put his name in. Harry must put his name in. It's not one person being like, Dumbledore has made that age thing a little bit hard to do, and what would be the motive for him to put his name in there? There's no one asking the other questions.
I think the most logical answer is that Harry did figure out how to beat the age line and put his name in there, because it seems like he's such a glory hog, because every year it's Gryffindor's not supposed to win the House Cup. Oh, they won the House Cup because Harry did this. So I get that as you're a student that doesn't know him, but at the same time, I agree there should be a strong group of people that are like, well, let's just say he didn't, then what? What's the deal with that?
Well, you have to be such a powerful wizard that you can both break the age barrier, trick the Goblet of Fire to then think that there's a 4th house. So you basically have to be the best wizard, one of the best wizards in the school, or the Dark Lord, aka Barry Crouch Jr. Mm-hmm. There's no one leaping to being what's more realistic? Someone else did this nefariously, or Harry did this by himself and is the greatest wizard of all time? There's a couple other conspiracy theories. Nobody's thinking that there's a little bit of inside job, a little point shaving, if you will, that's going on with Victor Crumb and the Weasley boys. We already touched on it. Come on. Nobody's put in that much unless it's a sure thing on that kind of parlay. A little bit questionable there. Yeah. The end we get, obviously. Do they think just Harry straight up murdered Cedric Diggory? How do they think he died? What's the logic there?
It's a kind of lingering question for me as well, because how do they say that Harry's story wasn't true and that Dumbledore believes? And the idea being, I guess, Cedric died because of one of the creatures in the maze, and no one saw him or got to him in time, but then somehow they were transported by Portkey, out in front of people. Or maybe that's just in the movie they're transported in front of people. And then what about Barty Crouch? It's the guy that was Mad-Eye Moody all year was actually a Death Eater, and he did all this. So it's either was Barty Crouch Jr., who somehow killed Cedric, but why would he kill Cedric? And he was trying to kill Harry Potter, but he didn't succeed. It just, a lot of it didn't seem to.
No, doesn't add up a lot.
What do you think the prop bet on someone dying in the Triwizard Tournament would be, because they do talk about it's happened years past. So I don't even think it'd be that good of odds. It's really not even surprising.
Yeah, that's a good point, because they have said, yeah, people die in the Triwizard Tournament. And how often does it happen? Is it supposed to happen? I'd say the odds would probably be like plus 500 that someone dies.
I mean, that's...
And Jimmy, if Keith hasn't sent you that Instagram video that I saw of the guy that's parlaying all the things that happen in the Triwizard Tournament, Keith, you have to send that to him, because I laugh every time I watch it.
I have not seen that.
My last stock up is, and this is a quick one, just the Muggle penal system. You know, we get our cold open at the old Riddle House, and Frank Bryce... they're telling the story about how Frank stumbled upon the Riddles dead. And you know what us Muggle cops do? I'm not a Muggle cop, but I'm a Muggle, and we have police officers. The cops just don't throw Frank Bryce the gardener in jail on hearsay and circumstance. They go in, they say, oh, he obviously didn't kill these people. They're just lying here dead. That doesn't look like there was any sort of murder. You're free to go. They don't just throw you in Azkaban without a trial and let the Dementor suck out your soul and make you insane after 2 weeks. They say, yep, no problem here. We're going to move on. And that's why Muggle police are much better than whatever this Ministry of Magic is. With that, we'll move on to Stockdown. Jimmy, what do you got for Stockdown?
My other one was buying a 3-day festival pass to the Triwizard Tournament. You know, you go to your favorite festivals 3 days. Usually one day is like the ultimate lineup, and, you know, maybe one's like okay and the other one's like above average. But you buy them all because it's a good deal. And, you know, you buy it to the Triwizard Tournament here, and the first day, amazing lineup. You got dragons. You get to see them all. You're like, this is the best thing ever. This is the coolest tournament ever. Second challenge... Let's see, you're just sitting there for an hour plus while they dive into a lake and you can't see anything. That sounds terrible. Why am I even here? Like, I can just read about that in the paper. I want to know exactly what they were doing. Just sitting in their seats, just like chilling? I don't know. Like, was there underwater TV? Like, what are we even doing? The third one, how about we do a maze where no one can see anything? Like, what in the world are we doing here? Isn't this supposed to be about entertainment? I'm not being entertained. It's literally just like you get to see who the winner is at the end. Absolutely terrible planning. They had all this time to plan this thing, and they have 2 out of the 3 you can't even see anything going on. Awful.
I couldn't agree more. The lingering question for me was, is the second task of the Triwizard Tournament the worst sporting event to be a spectator at that's ever existed?
I think it is. I
had spectator sports as a stock down as well. I think you also missed, Jimmy, the Quidditch World Cup. They show up to it. They have the best seats in the house. And what do they need to buy? Like binoculars? And they're like, oh, the binoculars are great because it slows things down and lets you replay it. I'm like, so they're just watching TV when they get into the best seats in the house? Like, so what's the even point of being there? They need some TVs. They need some entertainment updates here. So I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, I almost felt like the Omnioculars was somewhat of a jab at how people go to sporting events now, because even yourself, if you go to a sporting event with a big screen TV that's there, you find yourself like staring at it, especially if you don't have like the greatest seats.
But if they have the best seats in the house, if you're at the 50-yard line, you're not pulling your binoculars out.
We have talked before about how Quidditch might not be the best of spectator sports, just because there's, people are flying all over the place and the speeds and whatnot. So I felt like the Omnioculars were an interesting creation, but also if you're like trying to rewind and fast forward and there's like real time going on, if it's your first time being there and seeing that, you probably just want to take it in and put the Omnioculars down. But yeah. I couldn't agree more about the Triwizard. The first task is the ticket to get. That's where you want to be there. Other than that, see you later. And I just assumed that the second task, they had like the underwater camera like they do in the Olympics for synchronized swimming, like the group synchronized swimming.
Yeah.
That was the only way that they could make it worth sitting there for, because I didn't understand it.
But they don't, because the judges have to ask like the chief mer person what even happened down there? It's like, why are we even having judges then?
Yeah, that's such a great point. Why aren't the mer people just judging? That seems like they should do it, but even the judges didn't know. They just sat there, had a glass of butterbeer and waited. Keith, what do you have for Stockdown?
So that was one of mine, but the last one for me is Freedom of the Press, Stockdown. this book taught me anything, that it's that basically if you don't like what someone's saying, especially in the press, you capture them, imprison them, and keep them in prison until they promise to do what you want. If someone reports a story, you don't agree with it, just hold them hostage. And that's what Hermione taught me. And obviously it is kind of funny that Hermione's both fighting for the freedom of house elves while also enslaving a person for reporting news you didn't like.
But it's fake news.
Yeah, well, that's true. I do also want to bring up the fact that Hermione gets mailed anthrax hazardous chemicals and Ron blames her for it. He's like, well, you shouldn't have messed with Rita Skeeter. This is what you get. You get the poisonous letters that you're getting. You have like smallpox on your arms and stuff now. That's on you. It's like, huh? What? All right, Ron.
I had a few questions. One, no one's looking through the mail or anything at this children's school, so people can just like, the Unabomber can just send a bomb to Hogwarts.
Is that normal, though? Are we
I don't know.
anticipating that to be a common occurrence?
The fact that it's a Wizarding World, you can just put a hex in a letter and send it. It seems like people would do that stuff all the time, at least in my mind. I don't know. But it was also, one of my stock downs was just the media in general. And I know that you were going off doing the Hermione thing. But I did love that JK just starts kids young with the idea that they just can't trust the media. She taught all children that whatever you read is going to be like skewed one way or the other.
Or the government for the next books.
Not being able to trust authority has been like a main theme of Harry Potter in general. First it was like, oh, teachers at your school. Okay, now it's the media. You can't trust what you read in the newspapers. And then the next ones are going to be like, you can't trust the governing bodies. You just got to fight for your right. So I respected it. I loved the Rita Skeeter character in general. I thought she was just like a great addition, although she's a deplorable human being. My other question was, why isn't there any good media person there? It's a Triwizard Tournament. Why is the only person that's there Rita Skeeter, who
she got the inside scoop,
is just like a slant? She works for the National Enquirer, basically.
That was my question as well, because it's like, we see in the Pensive in the past, she's there covering the Nuremberg trials. Like what in the world is going on where
does it all?
The Daily Prophet and Rita Skeeter like are the go-to for news in this world. And Harry's even like questioning everyone, like, oh, you must be reading the Daily Prophet. Like, oh, you must be reading the Daily Prophet. And, everyone's kind of bashful about it, but that apparently is our only news source.
Cornelius Fudge is taking truth from what Rita Skeeter is saying, even though he should know that her stories are complete. What is it? Libel? Is that the written one, or is slander the written one? Whichever one is the written one. It blows my mind that she's the only news source. And I understand that, okay, we all have kind of one news source, like all of these different companies kind of trickle up to one giant think tank here. But at the same time, it's like, at least pretend, Wizarding World. At least do what we do and pretend that these things are different.
A little bit of defense of Rita Skeeter. She's not making things up completely. She's going the distance in terms of investigative reporting, turning into a bug, getting like some shred of truth to then build a story out of. You kind of have to respect that.
Yeah, okay. So you've so far respected Rita Skeeter and slavery so far. Bye-bye. Two for two. She got the Hagrid giant story, which is probably something that shouldn't be put in print. But at the same time, it probably should be known to parents if their teacher's a giant. Although these prejudices, like Dumbledore is very clear on, are usually unfounded.
Let me back it up real quick there, though. Didn't all the giants side with Voldemort?
Yes.
Hey, you were on the bad side in World War II. Yeah, maybe not all the Italians were bad on World War II, but you did side with the bad guys.
Whoa, back
right?
it up.
So,
maybe the world was treating the Italians pretty poorly, and so, the Germans said, hey, like, we'll treat you a little bit better.
Here we go.
Saying. I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's all Dumbledore's saying. He's like, treat the giants a little nicer, because maybe then they won't go straight to Voldemort when... the world goes to shit. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Rita Skeeter, slavery, and Mussolini. Okay, we'll keep going. Hopefully, we can get a couple more out of you. I had one quick stock down, and I just need to address it because it's been bothering me for several books. I need to get off my chest. Wizarding beverages might be some of the worst beverages even drank in the human world. I don't understand it. Everything's about pumpkin juice, butterbeer, and mead, which, if you've had mead, It's terrible. Butterbeer, I know it's like hip at the Disney resorts and whatnot, but it honestly sounds disgusting. It's like cream soda with butter sauce in it. I mean, I'm sure in the actual Wizarding World it's better, but it's still not something I want to crush like 6 of. And then pumpkin juice, like, haven't these people heard of apple juice? Like, apple juice is delicious. Pumpkin juice, hard pass.
I think that they're misnomers. I mean, would you think root beer would taste good? That sounds disgusting. Would you think Busch Lights would taste good? No, those both are amazing beverages. So yeah, I'm gonna put Busch Lights are delicious. So yeah, obviously it's just a misnomer. I think you're reading into it way too much.
You're telling me pumpkin juice is not pumpkin juice?
No. Do you think root beer has roots in it?
Well, kinda.
Got him.
Goblet of Fire, the longest Harry Potter book we have seen to date. It took book 3 and like doubled it pretty much. I mean, I was even texting Keith at the beginning when I just started reading it and I was like 20% in. I was like, we haven't even got to Hogwarts yet. I'm still doing Wizard World Cup and all this other stuff. I haven't even gotten to the meat of it. So there's so much of this book. Was there any section or chapter that really stuck with you and you said, oh, this is the best part of the book? Jimmy, what do you think?
Yeah, I had a pretty serious scene. It was in divination, and they're talking about all the planets and everything, and Trelawney mentions Uranus, and Ron just comes out of nowhere and says, hey, can I have a look at Uranus too, Lavender? Oh my god, like this is a 14-year-old kid, and he's just shooting his shot. Just absolutely crazy. And this is what I love about J.K. Rowling, is she puts these little breadcrumbs, like Sirius in book 1. And here too, we see it. We see the breadcrumb where Ron's like literally just being like, hey, Lavender, I want to see your ass. I want to see it. And fast forward to book, I think it was, 6? They're going out, snogging everywhere. Ron shot his shot and then got it later. And when they're looking for dates for the Yule Ball, Harry asks one of the Partils twins and being like, hey, do you know if Lavender's free for my boy Ron? Harry knows. Harry's like, the ultimate wingman. He's like, Ron wants it. I'm going to get it for him. And unfortunately, she already was taken. But it's just a beautiful breadcrumb left by J.K. Rowling. And honestly, it made me laugh. It made me cry.
And this is why Jimmy's such a great guest here, because he's not only on the same page as us, but I had a sneak peek into our listener mail, and he's right on the same page as the listener mail as well. So I do have a follow-up, so keep it in your mind. But I just want to say kudos to you. I couldn't agree with you more. Keith, what section did you love?
Every single scene in this book, I think you could say is a favorite scene. The book is just, it's a 10 out of 10. In my mind, this is probably the best book ever written. The scene that I really, and I told you, D-Man, the emotional journey that I went through, like I'd get done reading the book and I'd be upset, or I'd get done reading the book and be happy. So the best part for me for this book is after the first Triwizard task, Harry completes the task. He survives. He's one of the best. Ron and him make up. Everyone's having a good time. We're about to go on Christmas break. I felt like I was back in high school again. The perfect weekend. Mm-hmm. Everything was lining up. Felt good. Then I went back to the real world and I forgot that's not where we're at. But for that brief moment, I felt something again. So that was my favorite one.
So did Harry. You were right. I think that was probably Harry's peak for the whole thing too, because he was so concerned about the Triwizard Tournament generally. He got through the first task, no problem, top marks. And then Ron's defending him because Karkaroff is trying to throw him under the bus with a 4 out of 10, which is absurd. The Russian judge should be kicked out for that. The best part is he's like, I would have given anything. I would have given 0 points just to know that Ron was back on my side again. Yet, when Harry gets 1,000 galleons, he's like, here you go, twins. Ron, you get nothing. Keep wearing your old school dress robes. I just feel like you could have thrown a couple galleons to Ron.
Break them off. Yeah, a few. Yeah, for sure.
Mine was probably, it's a tie, I think, between the pensive chapter with Harry and Dumbledore. And I like that one not only because of the information we get about the past, which is always interesting in terms of like creating lore and canon and whatnot, and just the idea of we've been living in the present and all of this stuff with Voldemort, it happened, and it didn't happen that long ago. It was 12 years ago that he went down, or at this point it's 14 years ago that he went down. So to kind of see what went down in these, they are Nuremberg trials, very well said. So what happened there was really interesting. And I like that scene because we usually have to wait until the end of the book to get our Harry Dumbledore one-on-one time where Dumbledore kind of sheds light on things that Harry had no idea about, that we obviously as the reader had no idea about. And this time we get it like 3/4 of the way through the book. It was kind of a nice breath of fresh air to once again be back with Harry and Dumbledore just chatting, just the two of them. I was a big fan of the pensive. And then obviously you got to throw it in there, and we haven't talked about it yet, but the 3 chapters back to back to back, Flesh, Blood, and Bone, The Death Eaters, and Priory Incantatem, it's like the Beatles medley from Abbey Road. Is it one song? No, but they are the sum of their parts. And the scene in general is just like, holy smokes. Like, it felt like this was what the entire series at that point had been building up to. And it paid off. I love that we get the story from Voldemort's perspective. Just the idea that we didn't have any idea what he had been doing or feeling necessarily. And not that we really like support Voldemort. We're no Death Eaters here, except for maybe Jimmy, as he's an Axis supporter. But you get his side of the story, which is like twisted and wrong, but at the same time, super interesting. And how it all played out, and just the plan and how the whole plan worked out, I thought was awesome. So I loved it. Great ending with the Priory Incantatem. I also like talking about breadcrumbs. That's the same spell that it's Amos Diggory. He uses that same spell on Harry's wand at the Quidditch World Cup, when they're like, whose wand is this, and what did this, was this wand the same wand that put the dark mark in the air? And he's like, we can find out. And he touches the wand tips together and says like Priory Incantatem, and that happens. So we get an idea of what that spell is, but we don't even think about it. It's just such a throwaway moment, and then it comes back at the end of the book in a massive, massive way.
Something from that graveyard scene that, this is a little, I don't know if you guys thought the same thing initially, but, I probably read this book 20 plus times. And this was the first time I realized that Crabbe and Goyle weren't like the 14-year-old Crabbe and Goyle, like Death Eaters. Like, I remember forever being like, wow, like, this is really early to indoctrinate some 14-year-old kids. And like, they're just going to school. Like, when did they like find the time to become Death Eaters? And then finally like hit me like, oh, this is definitely their dads.
Yeah, that's their last name. Oh, it could have been like Voldemort's Hitler Youth,
Yeah, so that was a nice realization for me. You learn something new every time you reread.
Every time you reread, you learn something new. Let's get into the Bernie and Bott's Every Flavor categories. Let's go first with Pick Your Character. We had a bunch of new characters in this one. I'm not going to go through them all, but Ludo Bagman rings a bell, obviously. And I forgot to say, when we were having that Ludo Bagman talk earlier, that I just loved the fact that he paid the Weasley twins their bet money back with like the wizarding equivalent of Gelt. It's like, it was awesome. It's like total trickster way to pay someone back, and I loved it. Barty Crouch, Winky, Rita Skeeter, Crumb, Fleur, Karkaroff, Madame Maxine, Mad-Eye Moody, Amos Diggory. Who did you guys have for maybe a favorite or even a least favorite character?
I already spoiled mine. Mine's Mad-Eye Moody / Barty Crouch.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go much more into it, but he's just awesome. He's exactly what we needed at Hogwarts. I'm hoping he shows up more. I can't remember, so I'm hoping he does, though.
Yeah, he will be in it, Keith. Don't you worry. Jimmy, do you have a favorite or least favorite?
I don't know if we call it the real Mad-Eye Moody or the fake Mad-Eye Moody, but just the Mad-Eye Moody that just goes around doing whatever the hell he wants when he wants. Like, that's just the best. Like, and all the other teachers are afraid of him. So he's allowed to do what he wants. Mm-hmm. It's just incredible, teaching the kids like unforgivable curses. Just, I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I agree. I had him as mine as well. It was Moody with an asterisk for me, because it's not actually him. But, we talked about the Malfoy thing. And the Malfoy thing all started because Harry issued a well-timed Yo Mama joke, which we have to appreciate as well. And then talk about appreciation. We got to send props to our boy Hagrid for finally clapping back at Malfoy. Malfoy's in class and he's talking shit again. And Hagrid's like, hey, isn't that Mad-Eye Moody over there? And it's like, what? He's like, yeah, I might turn you into ferret. Watch out. So, I respect that as well. And I do think we have to have an honorable mention for Mr. Weasley. He's on the list because although he has a short stint in the book, he comes in with fire. At the beginning, the Dursleys refused to say goodbye to Harry. And Mr. Weasley stops dead in his tracks. He's like, whoa, not on my watch. I thought he was about to throw hands again because, we know Mr. Weasley's just jacked out of his mind on creatine and he's like waiting to throw hands. He doesn't this time. He lets the twins take care of it on his behalf. But so Moody's, I think, everyone's favorite. I do have to say that my least favorite character is Amos Diggory, which is saying something because we do get introduced to Rita Skeeter and Lord Voldemort in this book, and yet Amos Diggory takes the cake here. He is just ragging on Harry to his face, which is so uncomfortable. He says at the beginning, he's like, the best man won. I'm sure Harry would say the same. It's like, what? Like, you're telling me in a Quidditch match that happened a year ago that you're going to say that I'm going to tell you your kid's better than me? And what? He's like, one guy fell off his broom, one didn't. Don't have to be a genius to know who the better flyer is. It's like, I'm right here, dude. I'm standing right in front of you. You're not at the bar with your buddies shooting the shit. You're talking shit straight to a 14-year-old boy. Like, calm down. Even Cedric's like, Dad, chill. And he does the same thing at the end. So I was hoping Harry, when he was going to offer them the 1,000 galleons, was going to like do a like nope or something like that, just to get back at Amos Diggory. But
I'm gonna push back on that. I mean, would you rather have the people snickering on the corner and wearing those badges, or a guy come up right up to your face and say, listen, bitch, my son's better than you. What are you going to say about it? And you're going to do nothing about it, which I respected, right to his face. He's not talking behind his back. He's saying it right to your face. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, but you're comparing him, this grown wizard, to a bunch of children who are wearing badges. He's a grown-ass man. Just be proud of your kid and move on.
I mean, none of these guys have closed the yearbook. We all know that. Lucius Malfoy is like still trying to kill kids in the hallways. So I mean, we're all
not
we all
canon.
know that.
Not canon.
Yeah. Voldemort's being like, I'm going to show everyone how good I am. I'm fighting this 13-year-old. I still can't get over that. What a terrible move by him.
Yeah, Amos Diggory was just, to me, like the worst hockey dad who like goes on the ice and like starts trying to fight kids during a hockey game.
Yeah, well, Harry got the last laugh. He killed his son, so it's fine.
All right, let's get into hey, wow. I was gonna move on, but yikes. All right, you and Jimmy are on one side of the bus. I'm on the other.
I don't co-sign that.
Let's pick our magical elements here. So once again, a bunch of new magical elements that are new in this book. We got port keys, the pensive. We've talked about apparating before, but like now people are like actively apparating, disapparating, and we hear about splinching, which sounds terrible. Wizarding tents, omnioculars, which we've talked about, the Goblet of Fire itself, faux glass, Moody's trunk, lots of others. Did you guys have a favorite magical element?
I'm not sure I'd say favorite, but like the Goblet of Fire, I just have so many questions about. First and foremost, like, why can't you just say, I'm not competing? Like, what happens to you? Like, do you just die?
Yeah.
It's pretty established. Harry's like, hey, I didn't put my name in. So if they say, like, okay, Harry, like, are you willing to put your life on it that you didn't put your name in? And Harry says, yeah. And he just doesn't compete. Like, he still has to compete? Or what? Like, I want to know what happens. Part two, what happens if he doesn't try very hard? Like, he's just like, hey, give me the 0 marks on the dragon. I'll just sit on the sideline. Does he die again because the Goblet of Fire just kills him? Like, I need to know. That's probably the biggest one. And it seems like it's easy to manipulate since Moody's just like, oh, I just added another house in, put your name in, and automatically did that. So I want to know more about it.
It's a really good point because, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't Dumbledore just be like, okay, if you didn't put your name in, then you obviously don't want to compete. So there's like, just don't compete. Like, oh, what, does lightning come down and strikes him dead right there? And if that's not the case, like you said, just take the 0 marks on every single one. Don't get into the lake. Don't go near the dragon. And don't enter the maze and shoot red sparks. Done. Over.
If I got detention, and this is when I was most angry in the book, when Harry got detention for like talking back and defending himself to Snape, and everyone's like hating on him, and like his best friends don't even like talking to him, I'm 1,000% boycotting. I'm not showing up at all. There's not one chance I show up to that thing. Harry's different than I am, I guess, but
yeah.
I'd also put this like Harry sucks badge on, lean into it, feel like just making fun of myself.
Yeah. That's smart.
Yeah, so those are 2 things I would do.
Did you have a favorite magical element, Keith?
This is more of a magical industry, but the magical entrepreneurship, Fred and George creating the joke shop, amazing. You give me 2 or 3 chapters on just that, I'm in. Why are his parents shitting all over them? That it's like they're being super entrepreneurial and going out there, and they just want to work for the shitty government instead. Like they're doing something they want to do. Like this is gonna make the world better, in my opinion. By the end of the book, we hear that.
Yeah.
But this is why the wizarding world is not advanced. We talked about how, where are the underwater TVs? Why are these viewing events so terrible? It's because everyone's stuck in their ways. Yeah. We have the same families getting passed down generation to generation, owning the same shops. We have no innovation. We need more entrepreneurship, more innovations happening. Everyone's dressed like they're in the 1600s still. Let's revamp some things here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you'd assume that like their parents know what people get at these joke shops because their kids have for years, and they'd see what Fred and George are creating and be like, wow, this is different. This is something.
They must also be really good at both potions and the class McGonagall teaches.
Transfiguration and charms. Like there's like charms built into this.
Yeah,
stuff.
like so all these different things.
Yeah.
Super educational to figure out how to do these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more that they're just like stuck in their ways. I mean, they hate Muggles so much as a society that they haven't even accepted pens. Like they're still just using quills and ink.
Quills.
So
they go on spilling ink all over all the papers. Like what?
Like just use the space pen. It's from Seinfeld. It works upside down. I was partial myself. I thought the pensive was pretty cool, just in the sense of if you don't have to do any like recording of stuff or anything like that. You can just live your life at a sporting event. No one's pulling out their phones. When fireworks are going off, no one's pulling out their phones and saying, hey, everyone, just look at these fireworks. Like, isn't that cool? You watch it, you enjoy your life. Then later, you put a little thought thread into the pensive. And when you're 80, you can go back and enjoy all of those moments. I thought that was a pretty cool one.
Good point.
Yeah. I was a big fan of that, and just wizarding tents in general sound awesome. I mean, I'm not a huge camper. I did a bunch of camping when I grew up, but if I had a wizard tent, I would be all in. What about spells? We got a ton here. I'm not even going to go through them because there's so many. Obviously, we have the.
Well, mine is Cruciatus Curse.
Okay,
I'll lead off with that. I'm sick. I'm sick in the head. I think this is like the type of curse you need and the type of stuff you need to understand what dark magic is and make the evildoers eviler. So I'm all for it. Learning about Neville's parents, going through it, it makes you, again, be on Neville's side and root for Neville. And I thought it was a good addition.
Did you have a favorite spell, Jim?
I don't think they named the spell, but Moody turning Malfoy into the ferret. I'm curious how animals work here, because like you can transfiguration, turning into the animal permanently, being on the register. That seems really hard, but like, how long can you just turn someone into an animal if you feel like it? I thought that's like a really cool element.
That's a good point.
And I think I dropped out back there, but I did just want to add one thing to the whole pensive comment, and that was that Harry got really lucky that the scene that like he was in there was the Nuremberg trials and everything related to that. Like, could have easily been Dumbledore thinking about the days with Grindelwald and maybe some unsavory scenes there. So, and then maybe Dumbledore is going to jail for the rest of his life. Harry got into that stash, so lucky we avoided that.
Yeah, Harry could have learned some important life lessons if he had heard some other stuff. Or it could have been Dumbledore recording his BM in the morning because he's like, hey, you know what? That was pretty crazy. I ran into a bunch of chamber pots. I need to record it. And then it's just Dumbledore taking a poop. So, yeah, he did indeed get lucky. For me, kind of surprised. I thought Keith's was going to be Engorgio, and we all know why. But... and I think the Imperious Curse as an unforgivable curse is maybe the worst possible curse. You already talked about how Barty Crouch fights it off. Then you talk about how his dad eventually fights it off as well. Harry seems somewhat impervious to the Imperious Curse. So, he immediately fights it off in class and then later against Voldemort. So... it doesn't seem like it's that good of a spell. If you have a strong mind, you can just beat it. So it seems like it should be harder. It should be harder to get out of. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to go with Osseo. It's a simple one, but at the same time, talk about a way that I could soon be featured on my 600-pound life if I just had that spell at the ready. Because Sundays when the football season's on, I would just be like Osseo Miller Light over and over and over again, and I would never get up, and I would have 0 steps in the day. It'd be perfect. I think just as one of the more useful spells in the Wizarding world, I think that one's it, personally. What about creatures? Do you guys have any creatures you like? We got a bunch in this one. Leprechauns, Vila, Boobotubers, Blast-netted Scroots, Nifflers, Mermaids, Manticores, Sphinx, Dragons. I mean, we've already seen dragons, but any one of those jump out to you? Vilas, perhaps?
I think for me it's the Sphinx. Like, just this random creature that they plop down in there just doing riddles and just like, hey, if you get it wrong, I'm going to kill you. So I'm up for more of that. I want a whole series based on what the hell Sphinxes are doing in the wizarding world and like what's their purpose.
Did you think that the Sphinx was actually going to kill them if they did it, or was that just like part of the thing and they would have like stunned them and then that would have been that?
I mean, I think it would have attacked. I will say that the riddle itself was kind of weird. I don't know that, hard to find word, when you're thinking like, like, really? Is that what I would necessarily go with?
It's also very British though. The is a British thing. Because I've personally thought, I was like, that's the easiest one I've ever heard. And it's like, these kids are supposed to be 17, like they should figure it out. It's one word. It's an animal. You know what I mean? Like, I think Sphinxes are definitely up there for some of the more interesting character or like creatures in the Wizarding world. Because I'm also wondering, like, where do they live? And they just go around like telling people that answer this riddle that they're going to murder them, and that's okay. I don't know.
Kind of like the toll trolls. They already have that disposition of wanting to kill people anyways, and someone's like, hey, we got a job for you, and they're like, yeah, sign me up, this is fun. So I think that's just their mentality.
Yeah, I thought both the Vila and the leprechauns were interesting. And once again, I'm not sure how the breeding thing works in the Wizarding world, because like a man and a giantess, slept together and had Hagrid, and like Fleur Delacour has some Vila in her, but they're not human, they're like creatures, so I don't really know how that works. And then where do we draw the line? Because then that brings the whole like house elf thing back up, where it's like, should they still be slaves if they're like people? They're humans, they're humanoid. I don't know. It's confusing. No one's gonna mate with a blast-ended Scroot, but a Velas, well, maybe someone would. Maybe Aberforth Dumbledore would, because he did some weird stuff to a goat that got him in trouble. That was quickly talked about and then brushed under the rug by Dumbledore. All right, let's jump into some love-hate. Keith, what do you have for love?
Love, I mean, I already talked about how much I like this book, but the amount of death in this book, I love that. It got real dark real quickly. All of a sudden, we went from 0 deaths outside of like Harry's parents which we kind of
referenced about,
hear about, but we never see it, to like people dying left and right. When Barty Crouch just like disappears, I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's just like we'll find him later, and it's like, no, I murdered him, and he's under invisibility cloak. Like, he's dead. Like, people are just dying left and right in this book. We went from 0 to like 8 deaths in this book, so I'm all for it. Get darker. Get more into the death scene.
Yeah, it's like, have you seen the Rambo death tolls? If you look at the different Rambo movies, it's like Rambo 1 was like 2 people died. In the second movie, like 4 people died. In the third movie, 47 people died. It's like, oh, okay. I think then in the next one it was like 150. So that as well. Jimmy, what about you? What did you love?
Obviously, I love the darkness. I also love the kind of whole challengers sort of relationship between Ron, Hermione, and Crumb. This is the first book, like, we're really getting into some, like, love dynamics and triangles. And, Ron and Hermione have this game where, like, they're both, like, trying to make each other jealous. And I think Ron's not as aware of it as Hermione is. And I wonder if Hermione even likes Crumb at all, or if he's just a tool to use to get to Ron. I don't know if you guys picked up on this on the ending scene where Ron asks Crumb for a autograph, and Hermione just like has this sly smile. Hermione in her head is like, I am going to do some things with Crumb and make Ron watch. Like, that's her mentality right there.
Oh, all right. Yeah, you went even further than I did. I was at threesome. You went for the whole cuckold situation.
I mean, I think we can tell that's what she's into.
Yeah, no, I liked this book. Definitely show that these kids are growing up and like they're interested in the opposite sex or the same sex or giants and giantesses. It doesn't matter, but the point is that they're interested in something, and we get that going further in the book, like we've talked about with Lavender and whatnot. So I love that. For this one as well, I love the cold open with the Riddle House. Keith talks about it in the death stuff, but for the past 2 books, it's Harry waking up in his bedroom at the Dursleys, like getting upset. The first one opens with Vernon Dursley. They're both fairly innocuous, and then things go awry. But for this one, it's like immediately we're in some different place. We don't even know what's going on. We're starting with a muggle. We're not even starting with a wizarding person. And you're seeing this crazy stuff happen with Voldemort, that it was like such a great start to this that you're like, this book is going to be different and this book is going to be amazing. You know that right off the bat. What else for you, Keith?
Harry and Cedric's partnership, despite seemingly being enemies and everything, I did like that they were like sharing advice for each of the different challenges, and then kind of together like, hey, we'll both win this together. It really did make it so that when Cedric died, it like meant something. Whereas if they just were like, oh yeah, he's the other guy that's competing, and like there wasn't in like either just all love or all hate, one way or the other, it wouldn't have hit as much. But like the fact that there was some turmoil, but also like he respected him and different things there, I like that. It was like a full-fledged relationship, which made the death much harder.
Yeah, and we obviously don't live in Harry's mind the whole time during the book, but you can imagine in the time we're not seeing Harry on the page that he's thinking about this situation with Cedric a lot, because he's into Cho and Cedric's doing that thing. But then at the same time, there's like this camaraderie there, and they're both Hogwarts champions. I did think that Cedric could have done a little bit better for him on the second task, though, besides just like, go take a bath. It's like, I literally told you it was dragons.
Yeah.
Just say we're going to the lake and we got to save someone.
Yeah, he set him up to like the bathroom. That was pretty nice. Like that.
Oh yeah.
Big, like
the bubble.
It wasn't
bath
even
scene
like a
was
hot
awesome.
tub. It was a pool that was all hot. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and Myrtle's just voyeuristic there. She's right out of Jimmy's story, I just felt like the story is just so well done. I know we say this a lot with Harry Potter, but this one more than any other book, the story was perfect. She was able to put so much into this book without it feeling like there was too much going on or like things were left hanging. There's a bunch of red herrings for what's happening and who's doing it that you almost forget at times that there's something like very serious going on at Hogwarts. We know from the beginning that Voldemort is trying to do something, but there's so much other stuff happening that we sometimes like forget that's even part of it until the end when it all comes like rushing back. And I also love with the red herring stuff with like Ludo and Karkaroff, because those are like our two biggest suspects, that their stuff wasn't just thrown in there to throw us off. It also had its own story arc. Karkaroff being the Death Eater, and then, that's why he's teaching the Durmstrang students dark arts, but then him turning, okay, we get that. And Ludo, it's like, he's just gambling. but his gambling story was interesting with the, they just throw it in bits and parts with the goblins and then the Weasley twins. What are they doing? So all of that ties together so well. The ending I felt like was tied up so nicely. It's like a sharper image gift that you pay the $10 extra to have it professionally gift wrap is like how this thing came out. And by the end of this book, it really felt like she wanted to have a clean break from the early years at Hogwarts until what's coming up next. And I think she did it so well with how Voldemort came back, and just the growth throughout this book of these characters. And now that they've seen the terrible things they've seen and how it's going to progress, it just felt like such an amazing break and such a great way to do it. I just thought it was perfect.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like there's no stone like unturned in this one. Nothing skipped. No element of the journey from the start to the finish that they skipped, which I think as a Harry Potter fan, when you want to be in that world for as long as possible, that's much appreciated.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it, because you'd think that, I have so much extra I need to put in this book, I'm gonna have to cut all this other stuff we do. No, we actually get more. We get the Sorting Hat back. We hear another Sorting Hat song, which we had missed for the last two books. We get the Sorting Hat back. She was able to put it all in there without making it, a 1,000-page book, but at the same time, it's long, but it's a page turner. Every page is great. Yeah, a couple of just quick last loves just to throw in there. Quidditch World Cup, loved it. We've already talked a lot about it, so I'm not going to go back into it, but just such another great experience to get into the Wizarding World outside of Hogwarts. Big fan. Sorting Hat, and then I thought the Death Eaters were just great, the way they looked, the way they were explained, and also just the name. We didn't even know about Death Eaters before. Death Eaters is just like a great name for a band of bad guys. I mean, we got Putties from Power Rangers, Foot Clan from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I can't think of some other ones, but I just think Death Eaters, it's great. It sounds like a metal band, and that's pretty much what the Death Eaters are. So
what were the Red Rising one? It was like Bone Collectors or something? What was it? Bone Riders?
Bone Riders, yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, my Bone Riders.
I like how you pulled putties out.
Yeah, putties.
Those are like the foot soldiers.
Yeah, that's what they are. That's the Death Eaters.
I guess that's true. Yeah, they're like pawns.
They're foot soldiers in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles too, and they call them the Foot Clan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Jimmy, did you have any other loves before we jump into hates?
My final love was just like the serious version of Dumbledore, because we kind of get like a lot of joking Dumbledore in the past, and you know, the every flavor beans and earwax and all that, and this is the first time kind of starting with the fake Moody where he, you know, busts open and does the, you know, stupefy spell and all that, where he's just now not joking at all. Like, he's coming in, he's basically like, Voldemort's back, this is what we're doing, there's no time to waste. And I love spending a lot of time with that Dumbledore, because, you know, you just kind of trust him and you just want to spend more time, like, hey, like, lead us to victory, what are you doing? Especially, I think it all sort of culminates in the 6th book and going on that adventure with Harry. I don't want to do any spoilers, but the Horcruxes, but this is the first time we finally get, like, not playing around Dumbledore.
Yeah, we get Dumbledore the headmaster, but we have yet to see Dumbledore the field marshal, and this is the first sight of it, and it's amazing. So let's jump into hates. Keith, what'd you have for hates?
Big hate for me was early on in the book. Harry gets invited by Ron to the prestigious World Cup, and the least he could do is buy the binoculars for Ron and not be like, now I don't owe you a Christmas present. It's like, bro, you're getting invited to this thing with the best tickets in the house. I feel like you don't need to be like, nah, like that rubbed me the wrong way. Come on, Harry, figure it out.
That's funny, because I read that totally differently. I read that as like Ron being like a kind of dude who doesn't want any handouts, even though that's kind of one of my hates, is he just complains about not having money all the time. You know, either shut up or accept the handout. Yeah, I thought he was like, no, like, I'm not doing it. And basically Harry's like, no, to make him feel better, like, it's your Christmas present.
It is kind of weird, because I feel like if you get invited to something and you're not paying for it, I feel like you're like, all right, I got the beers, you know, or something like that. But instead he's like, I guess I'll give you these binoculars. Like,
I read it like Jimmy did. Ron didn't want the handout, so he said it's Christmas present kind of thing.
All right, fair enough.
And Harry also, like, Ron throws something at him later about money, and Harry kind of like brushed it off, like no big deal, which I thought was pretty big of him. Jimmy, do you have any hates?
Just to continue on that, like, Ron for a good portion of his book was just a hate. He's just moping around, jealous of Harry for like being the Triwizard Tournament. It's like, hey, this is a day one friendship here. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, maybe just go up to him and be like, hey, did you really put your name in the Goblet of Fire? Maybe just ask him instead of going on a little temper tantrum and being like, why is it always him and not me? Like, bro, first of all, you already got your best game of wizard chess, like, little badge. Like, you got that in book 1. Book 2, like, he was almost in the Chamber of Secrets and stuff like that. I was like, dude, like, chill out. Like, Harry is your best bud. Just happy or scared for him or something. Just be there for him. And it's just a ridiculous move by Ron, and I just can't support it.
Yeah, that was honestly the only thing I had as well. It just seemed a little far out there for Ron. I know Ron has, like, you know, lived in the shadow of his brothers, and now he lives in the shadow of Harry. But I feel like he's a good bloke. He would just ask and be like, dude, how'd you do that? And he's like, I didn't do it. It's like, wow, okay, that's pretty crazy. And because if Harry's like, yeah, remember how I said I saw Voldemort in my dreams, and remember the last 2 years when we fought fought Voldemort? Yeah, so it could be him. It's like, yeah, probably. Wow. So yeah, I felt like Ron wouldn't have taken such a hard line.
Yeah, when has like Harry lied to him also? Yeah, so it seems like it was like, where's that coming from? Doesn't make a ton of sense. It must be some internal demons. Yeah, you know, yeah. I think that's all it was.
Harry has a little bit of Batman in him, where like all this time, like, Batman's obviously helping people out, but then all of a sudden people hate him because one little thing happens and like blows up. Like, it's the same sort of thing, and it's like, yo, Harry's done all this stuff, and all of a sudden the whole school hates him for being in the Triwizard Tournament. Like, it's insane, and it, you know, honestly, it's kind of a little bit you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I think people are just tired of Harry being on top. They just want to topple him down.
Yeah, him and Bill Belichick.
You've got mail.
Buddies, I know y'all talked about the cleverness from J.K. leaving breadcrumbs that show up and reveal in later books, but I think the humor in this book had me cracking up more than I can remember. The juxtaposition, Keith, is that a word, of life-threatening situations being less intimidating to Harry than getting a date to the ball was an amazing chapter with him and Ron trying to get dates. Harry's inner monologue was fantastic, while Loki's stalking Cho, and then the debrief in the common room with everyone after was also gold. Especially considering that the breadcrumbs for future relationships that play out over the series with everyone involved that turn Harry and Ron down. Fleur, Hermione, Lavender, and Ginny all culminating in twins, Basil. Do y'all have a funny moment? P.S. Stock down, hand up again. Not signing off Azkaban Pod with mischief managed. That's on me. Magic. There we go. It was for magic. Got it. Yeah, great points there. And do we have a favorite funny moment? We got Jimmy's, so considering I said I was saving it, I'm going to just say that was mine as well. I mean, how could it not be magic? Honestly, it's Ron's quote is, "Can I have a look at Uranus too, Lavender?" It's so good. It's the first time I noticed it, and actually, it was the wife who I asked her what was a funny moment, and this is the first thing that she called out. So I didn't even remember it once again, even though when I read it at the time, I laughed, but I forgot about it. And then I thought about it, and I said, this is a joke that is pretty strictly English. And this book has been translated into 120 languages. I was thinking back to Chamber of Secrets when they had to change all the Tom Marvolo riddle thing. So I was like, I wonder what they did in other languages. Naturally, the internet has this. The best one was in Norwegian. They couldn't figure it out, but they tried to include Uranus. So the sentence was, which I can't say anything, but it translates to, "Can I have a look at your ancient anus?" So that one is probably the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted.
Because there's in Dutch it was "Can I have a look at your heavenly body?" And in French it was something like "Can I look at your butt?"
Were they double entendres for all of them, or are they all?
Some of them are on the
literal?
nose. Yeah, some of them are on the nose.
Okay.
Straight up.
So people read it what the hell?
In other words, but it's also interesting because they were talking about celestial bodies. And so
okay, that makes sense.
It's already a double entendre in Trelawney's class. So great joke. It's a perfect joke because not only is it way smarter than I could come up with, but it's too smart for kids and just smart enough for the adults reading it. So I thought it was great.
It's also interesting to note with the whole later books uneasiness with Ron and Harry dating his sister, where he pretty quickly offers up oh, you can just take Ginny. Really?
Yeah, good point.
That's Ron being a good pal there. Hey, you need a date. I got you.
Yeah, I had two comments. One that reminded me, there's a Basil in this book. So twins Basil. I didn't even know Basil was a real name. I thought it was strictly from Austin Powers. So I really appreciated that. Second question for you guys also is, how long after Cedric died is Harry thinking, well, Joe's single now? How long do you think it took him to do that? An hour?
If he's Dennis from Always Sunny, he's going up to her and be like, "Hey, I'm pretty torn up, but you saw I brought Cedric back. I mean,
yeah.
I know you're torn up too. Do you want to both get torn up together?" And that's the move.
We're in the graveyard, and he's like, "What did you just say, Voldemort?" I was sorry, I was thinking about something else. Yeah. I just missed what you were talking about for the last 30 minutes. I was having some fantasies in my mind.
All right, let's get into some lingering questions and some potpourri here. We have how did Barty Crouch pass off as Moody? I think we discussed that. The Triwizard Tournament. The whole tournament itself seems impossible unless you're cheating, right? No 17-year is going to be able to walk in front of a dragon that they didn't even know was there and then be able to steal an egg from underneath it. Everyone cheats on every task.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be one of those things where you either had to have just taken the class or it's a fun fact. It'd be coming up against an alligator randomly. You just be I have no idea. Am I supposed to run
zigzag?
Zigzags? Yeah, am I supposed to stare it in the eyes? There's 10. There's 10 things that you could do that I've heard before.
Yeah.
So
we also had Dumbledore stumbling into the room of requirements, which we talk about in later books, because you need to have a BM at 5:30 in the morning. I think we have a life maxim in this book that's given to us, which is you don't ask a woman if she's pregnant, and you definitely don't ask her if she's half giant.
That's like asking Jimmy where he was in 1945, right, Jimmy?
What did your grandfather do in 1945? Did anyone have any lingering questions or other things about this book?
Yeah, I'm not going to go too much into this just to keep it, PG-13 podcast. But, I think it has to be at least addressed of the age difference between Crumb and Hermione, and all of a sudden Crumb's inviting her back to Bulgaria and you're the, most amazing, different girl I've ever met. What in the world? And in terms of the thing you're going to miss most, it's Hermione for Crumb. What in the world went on between them two? It's a lingering question.
So Crumb is 17 or maybe 18.
He's like a senior in high school. She's a freshman.
Yeah,
right?
he'd be like a senior in high school and she's a freshman in high school. Definitely, as someone that's about to have a daughter, like, no, that's not going to fly. So I get it, but I don't think it's...
That wasn't that crazy in high school, though, right? Am I making that up? I mean, I never dated anyone because I didn't talk to girls, but like that wasn't that crazy,
It was a
right?
big like story. I feel like, yeah.
I feel like it happened, but it wasn't that common. And also, I feel like there's a big jump like halfway through high school as to what's allowable. It would skeeve me, but I know it did happen at my own high school. Like, it was a little scarlet lettery. I don't know.
I also won't ruin it for Keith because I know he hasn't seen the movie. But once you get to that podcast, there's a line they add in that Hermione says about Crumb that's just like adds even more fuel to the fire.
Yeah, noted. I'll be on the lookout.
All right, Keith, who gets your house cup?
I kind of previewed it earlier, but it's going to just in general investing your money in things that matter. I really did appreciate that Harry was like, I don't want this money. It's dirty money. I'm going to give it 1,000 galleons to Fred and George to start something that is beneficial to other people, that makes people happy, makes people laugh. And it's you're giving it to your friends. I really respected that. I liked it. It's a sentimental one, but better than throwing in the S&P 500.
Yeah, why not? It was blood money to him anyways.
I feel like Harry's more like on like Shark Tank. Like he's like investing. He's like, oh, this is something. This is something I want to put some seed money into, 100%. Plus, I mean, what is the Marauders map worth? Because the twins give that to him. That's gotta be that's gotta be up there. Like, so Harry's really just giving him a little thank you very much here. Let me help you back.
That's a good point.
That is a very good point. And I'm kind of surprised he didn't pull. I mean, granted, he's in the moment, so it was a great time for the Weasleys to get in there and get that money. But I'm surprised he didn't pull like a Mr. Wonderful and try to get some royalties on it or something. Yeah, a penny for every wand sold or whatever, for every joke wand sold. Jimmy, do you have a House Cup winner?
One of my favorite stand-up comedians is Anthony Jeselnik, and he has a great, kind of one-liners, and it really epitomizes my pick. So my pick's Cedric Diggory, and let me just read this joke, and it's, people get weird when kids die. That's a fact. Like about a month ago, some kids in my neighborhood were playing hide and seek, and one of them ended up in an abandoned refrigerator. That's all anyone talked about for weeks. I said, who cares? How many kids do you know that get to die a winner? And that's Cedric. Like, dude just went out on top. You won Quidditch Cup the year before. Now your Triwizard Tournament. It was all going downhill from there. Like, he was going to have kids with Cho. It was going to be awful. He was going to turn into his dad where he's just vicariously living through his kids. And he said, you know what? I'm going out on top. So, cup for him.
Yeah, he was going to be one of those guys who's stuck in high school for the rest of his life because that was his glory days. So now he's entombed there forever, and he has the glory to go along with it. So it's a good point.
Although he didn't get killed by Voldemort, he got killed by Credigo. Ugh, that's a tough
That is a tough one. Voldemort had to have someone else Avada Kedavra you, but at the same time, that's by Harry's word. So one, people don't believe Harry, so they'll just say, "Oh, Voldemort did it." Or two, Harry should do the right thing and just say it was at Voldemort's hand. For me, I mean, I already said mine. It was the Dark Lord, which is, Keith just stole it from me. Just straight up stole it.
So I got to make it a stock
in
early
his first
up,
stock up.
It's on
in
you.
His first stock.
Yeah.
He already bought it. So now I'm trying to buy, but the market's closed. And I thought that was a great one. And he really is one of the better bad guys. The fact that he's a good guy this whole time. It's a classic movie whodunit that ended up getting totally twisted around, and you realize your favorite character is actually the bad guy, which is perfect. They did it so well. Jimmy, for you overall, where does Goblet rank in your 7-book series?
I hate to do it, but I think it's number one. Like it really is. It's just the book that kind of had everything. And it was the first book that JK just like threw down and said, I'm just going to do like these massive, massive books. And I know you guys love it and you're not going to complain how long they are. And you get movies now and you're like, oh, like 3.5 hour runtime, 4 hour runtime. Like, I don't know if I want to see that. With these books coming out, you would see the pages and you're just like, I just need more. And I think this was the first time she was finally like, oh, you guys like really love this stuff. Like, I'm just going to give you more. And just, I love reliving that feeling every time I read it.
Her audience was growing in age with this story. So now it's like, okay, the people that read this when they were kids are now teenagers. Like, they're ready for teenagers stuff and also can read a longer book. So let's, write this for them, which I appreciated. Keith, first 4 that we've read, What's your rank now?
Yeah, this is gonna be number 1. 4, 3, 1, 2.
Yeah, and I was always a 3/4 guy. You know, if you'd asked me right before I reread this, I would have said the same thing. But after rereading it, I can't not say that this is the best one yet. So,
Wow.
yeah.
There you go.
4-3.
Changed your mind.
4-3-1-2. Guys, that was a great pod. I'm glad we got to do this because I freaking love this book. Jimmy, it was great to have you. I'd like to leave you guys with a quote for the books, from the book, so we can remember it for next time. Keith, the quote is, and I quote, "Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire, Harry?" He asked calmly. That's Dumbledore, by the way. So we're going to discuss that on the movie pod. But Jimmy, once again, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And Keith, as always, it's a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Love to be on in the future.
Giddy up. Good stuff, boys.
Bye now.
Bye now.